The street committee will be called to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Conway, Alderman Moore,
Here.
Alderwoman Murphy,
Here.
Alderman Kotar,
Here.
Alderwoman Boyd, Alderman Bosley,
Here.
Alderwoman Martin, Chairman Boyd.
Present.
5 present, you have a quorum.
Okay. The board bill we're gonna hear right now is board bill number 30, sponsored by Alderman Moore.
Here they are, here they are.
Thank you.
I'm just visiting.
You just hanging out.
I'm here early for the,
You got transportation.
we got transportation in town or something. I usually get here at 7:30.
Okay, Alderman Moore,
Okay.
go ahead.
This is a stop sign that's very much needed in the 2700 block of Taylor and the 4500 block of Kennerly to make it a three-way stop. Kennerly is a street heading west. Once you get on the west side of Kennerly, it's a one-way heading west. And there is a gentleman's club there that parks, have a lot of activity and park a lot of cars. So when you come up, when you're heading west on Kennerly, when you get to Taylor, you can't see around the cars. It's a very dangerous intersection, so I need a stop sign there to stop, slow that traffic down anyway, because they start from Garfield and go North Market, St. Ferdinand, Cottage, Kennerly, and Maffett in a straight run, driving pretty fast. So this will also help me slow it down.
Okay.
So I ask for your favorable consideration on this issue here.
Alderwoman Murphy,
It sounds fine. It's in your ward, isn't it?
Hi, Freeman Bob.
I have to say
Exactly
it.
what
He's
Freeman
gone.
said.
I have to say it. It's in your ward, Alderman. It's fine with me. You
Alderman,
know your ward the best.
Alderman Cobra,
No questions.
Alderman Bosley.
No questions.
Okay. Have you thought about any other traffic calming opportunities besides a stop sign? I mean, like, placing, those lots, you know, in a space where a car can't park there, so that people can see? Or is your main concern the speeding?
Speeding, and not only speeding, but the idea that it's a very dangerous intersection, period. You just can't see, so you need to stop. A
Okay.
pot won't stop it.
Have you thought about a roundabout?
No, it's not. That street there needs more than a roundabout. I need to spend that money on something else.
Okay. All right, well, I have no further questions. I'll entertain a motion to pass Board Bill 30 out of committee with a due pass recommendation.
So moved.
Seconds.
It's been moved and second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Conway, Alderman Moore,
Aye.
Alderwoman Murphy,
Aye.
Alderman Kotar,
Aye.
Alderwoman Boyd, Alderman Bosley,
Aye.
Alderwoman Martin, Chairman Boyd.
Aye.
5 I vote to do pass.
Okay, so Board Bill 30 comes out of committee with due pass recommendation. Okay, it moves us and transitions us right into the conversation that we want to have as far as traffic calming. I've asked Deanna from the street, she's our lighting commissioner, right?
Traffic and lighting.
Traffic and lighting, okay. Traffic and lighting. So she's our residential expert as relates to traffic calming and different options that we would have, because certainly speeding is an epidemic in the city of St. Louis. It's just out of control. It's something we've been complaining about for many years, and oftentimes the quick fix is a stop sign. I personally don't like stop signs. And from talking to the street department over the years, there's a federal rule about stop signs, you know, in municipalities and how it can affect your federal funding. So Deanna, maybe you could share that information with us as well. You can go ahead and take a seat, and with your guest that you brought in. So we want to, know what the issues are as you see them from street and traffic. how does speeding affect traffic signals, stop signs, public safety in the city of St. Louis? What options that we have, what costs associated with those particular options, and if you guys are working with the public safety department on some of these issues. So you go ahead and introduce yourself again and who you brought with you.
Certainly. Thank you, Chairman. I'm Deanna Vicker. I'm the Commissioner of Traffic and Lighting with the Streets Department. This is Jamie. He's our bike ped coordinator, also with our street department over in the traffic division. I must say, a year and a half ago, we started working on, almost 2 years ago, maybe, started working on a traffic calming policy with the city of St. Louis. We had several aldermen that were interested in helping craft that language and what that policy looked like. And over the course of the year, we were able to put one together. We took a look at several different policies that were all over the United States, from the East Coast, the West Coast, South, all different mechanisms, excuse me, of what kind of public input to no public input to different types of objects. So it kind of gave us a nice toolbox of tools to be able to use to do traffic calming. It's something that we actually had a few things done here in the city of St. Louis, but it wasn't deemed necessarily as traffic calming. So I always use we've done roundabouts in certain places. We have them in Forest Park. We have a couple within Waterman. Actually, I tend to drive it every day. It's just my daughter's school, but it has a roundabout. It has a choker. It has rumble bumps. It has a chicane. It has a splitter island. So the whole street is actually filled with traffic calming devices, including bump outs, that help keep the speeds at a reasonable level. What we all know is that people don't adhere to stop signs. We have a plethora of non-compliance to the stop signs. It becomes just a sign. I mean, just on Nextdoor last night, somebody was saying, we have a four-way stop, but nobody stops. How do we get them to stop? Well, the sign says stop. You're supposed to stop, right? And besides me getting into a car with everybody, I can't make you stop. So we don't have policemen that can sit out on every corner to patrol that. We have speeding issues and problems throughout our neighborhoods, but we like to use stop signs because let's just tell them to stop, but maybe they'll just slow down. But when we really need them to stop, they're not stopping. They're just slowing down, which creates crash problems that we have. And that is throughout the entire city. So nationally, what they're doing is looking at traffic calming, more physical type devices that physically make you slow down, whether it's a horizontal deflection or a vertical deflection. Those are things that are physical on the road, not an officer on the side that's going to turn on their lights and have to pull you over after you've already done it. But they're physical devices that are going to make you want to and need to drive slower on that road. So you don't have to put the stop signs every block just to get them to roll through it and slow down, right? So that's the premise of it. What traffic calming can be, it's used different treatments on different types of roads. You're not going to put speed humps on a Kings Highway, but there are different treatments you can use on Kings Highway to get people to drive slower. So there's different treatments on the residential routes, and then there are on larger arterial routes. Does that make sense? So can I pass some stuff around? And grab him back there too. Alderman, here you go. I'm going to pass them around this way since you got a big gap over there. Do we have enough?
So, here.
Is that enough? You need another one?
One more.
Okay. And I've got more here, obviously, if others want to, we can just leave them if that works. So part of the group that got together, and it was passed last November, I believe, right? August of last year in 2016. Oh, it says it on the date. We put together a flow chart on the front of the process, and then behind it are the steps and the policy that go through how to install traffic calming within the wards. Because this is a financial commitment, it is I'll call it a two-step, it's a partnership between the alderman and the traffic division to have these done. So while I can say, yes, we should put one there, if the alderman is not willing to fund it, it becomes one that sits on the shelf until funding becomes available through either our project or through private funds. So it is a two-part system. We are in a position as such in the streets department. I have myself and 2 engineers, and that's it. So we are swamped with every other request that comes in, along with plans and construction that's out there. So we are not able to do all the traffic studies that everybody wants and needs for their ward. If it comes in, the way we've set up the policy is that if it's a single request or a couple locations within your ward, we'll be happy to take a look at it. It's something we can set out our speed radar device and do check what the speeds are. We take them for 3 days, so we're getting 24 hours a day for 3 days. So we're getting everybody. And then we can see what that change in what they're driving versus what the actual speed limit is, and can give you a recommendation. If we're gonna do a whole ward or many blocks, we are just not set up to do that because that takes all of our resources, and we have 28 wards. So we are going to defer that over to the Board of Public Service, who has an on-call consultant that we were part of selecting them, and we will work with them on the scope and do a traffic study with an analysis of what the recommendation is for speed humps. So it comes from that end, and it basically is a volume-based kind of decision. If I had more staff, we could do them in-house. I just don't have the staff.
Jeff, I have a question.
I do too, Joe, so.
Can we just let her finish her presentation and we'll go back?
Sure, thank you. So with that, I've also, let's do the menu kind of thing. Here you go, Alderman. And I'm gonna keep one and pass, here, I'm gonna keep 2, sorry, and pass the rest around, that way everybody gets one there. The next thing I'm passing out is, I'll call it, it's a menu, and I sent this out to all the aldermen prior to budget season to let them know this is kind of that menu of items that we frequently get requests for. It's got some costs associated with it, maybe in some locations, who to contact. So this is kind of I'll call it the cheat sheet that you can use, hang it up, post it, so that when you get that request, you can have a kind of a quick check to see, is it there, or do I need to do a little bit more research? It's the same menu, enhanced, that I passed out last year. Last year it came with some pictures, of which we will go ahead and pass out as well. So, yeah, let me get one for Alderman here and the Alderman there, and I'll keep one. And you can pass those down too. So next thing is coming are actual pictures of some of the devices with some cost estimates associated with it. What you will see in a lot of cases are ranges because it will depend specifically on the area that you're looking at, how wide your streets are, how long the area is, and what all the surrounding issues are. So not all our street widths are the same in the city, so some are wider, they're gonna cost different prices. If you need ADA ramps in association with, say, a crosswalk, that's going to be a different cost associated with these. So it really depends upon what you wanna do. If we wanna start, I'll just put up everybody's pictures. That top one there is a speed hump. It's great for slowing people down. That's what it does. It can also be used as a like prohibit people from cutting through neighborhoods. So they know they've got to slow down and go over humps throughout that route, such as Mardell. People are not going to want to do that. So therefore, that's probably a great option for some of those cut-through type streets. Doesn't mean you need to put one every 50 feet. That's not the intent. We don't want them to be like stop signs. The intent is to put them, the range is 500 feet is what we're trying to aim for, the distance between them. We need to avoid driveway entrances, alleys. Actually, fire hydrants are kind of great locations for them because people not supposed to park in front of a fire hydrant anyway, although you can park on top of a speed hump. It's only a 3.5-inch height difference. But at 3.5 inches, you're gonna slow down. And that comes with striping on the roadway, a sign in front of it that says hump, so it's all in compliance. Now BPS did go out, they went on call and they had a price, I'm gonna say it was $24.50 or $2,400 is what BPS came out with. So there's two versions of speed humps. So you have the $2,400 one, and that's with asphalt, that's what's shown in that picture, okay? That can be done through BPS with their on-call contractor, and that's already been set up. So it's a matter of going through, doing a transfer. We would go out together and find the location. We'll give you a recommendation and make sure that the resident who's going in front of is okay with the placement of it, okay? And usually there's some wiggle room and we can maneuver around, you know, this guy doesn't want it, but the next house will be fine with it, and we've got some play there. So we can go through and do that. The next process would be to bid it out. Sure.
I'm sorry, on the hump, can that be put on a snow route or bus route, or this is the no-no?
So this is the challenge. This speed humps should not be used on bus routes, and they should not be used on snow routes.
Okay.
That's the kind of our stance right now. When we went to Kansas City and we looked at these, they actually ran plows right over the top of them. Right now, we do not have a comfort level because I have them in one location. So, you know, I think let's do baby steps, learn to crawl before we walk here. So before we get going and have these out, I'd like to make sure that the ones we put down work, and we kind of grow into that. We are going to have Kent, who is the Commissioner of Streets, you know, take a look at these as he drives over and he gets more comfortable with them, give his opinion on whether or not he'd be willing to take a snowplow over it. Right now, it's kind of out my hands and into his skin because it's his equipment that would be getting damaged.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask the committee again, we're gonna hold all our questions
Oh, I'm
until
sorry.
Deanna finishes her presentation. So if you would just kind of write them down, and then we kind of take all the questions at the end, that'd be appreciated.
And I'm sorry, Chairman, how much time did you want to spend on this?
Have time.
Okay,
This is an important issue, so.
understood. I just didn't know how much time that you wanted to devote. The other option for our humps are, we've tried some rubberized speed humps. Those are up in the 27th Ward, and actually the only location that we have them down. And that was really due to the time that it was going to take BPS to get out, because they did not have it on their on-call list at that time, was going to be so long. So we went to a manufacturer method, and we looked at this option. They are much pricier. Excuse me. They are around $6,000 each. And after doing, what did we do? Eight of them in his ward. I have modified my policy that I will be doing no more than 2 per ward per year, because the amount of time and wear and tear on my equipment and people that it takes to put those in, it takes 300 bolts into the ground on each one of those humps. So this was a resource drain that we had to go buy generators, drills, that kind of thing to have those humps installed. So we're learning, and this is part of that process. So that's what time-wise we can afford to do there. The raised crosswalk at the bottom is very similar to the speed hump at the top. The only difference is that it provides that flat surface that would be ADA accessible with a nice cross slope of 2% or less that allows the pedestrian to cross the street without, if you're in a wheelchair, falling off, okay? So that's just the only difference. With the crosswalk though, you do need to be ADA compliant on either side or adjust your curbs coming out to it to meet the crosswalk itself. We are putting in these on Berthold, the zoo, or the just bump outs, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I apologize. So actually, these are gonna go in Forest Park though. We have
Right.
some of these going in Forest Park. They just had a project, so that'll be something new. I think there's parts of those are under construction now.
The VA's gonna have.
Oh yeah, and the VA hospital, off of Grand is going to have one too. They've submitted in their stuff. On the next page is a traffic circle, excuse me. So there's a couple differences, you'll see there's a circle and then there's a roundabout. Kind of two different things. A roundabout brings you in to the circle at a tangent so that you don't really slow down so much. You just kind of keep coming in the circle. Whereas a circle, you come in at a 90-degree point, you have to turn and then make a 90-degree turn. Two different concepts. The roundabout is used for, I'll call it a little higher speed facility in order to keep traffic really moving. A circle is used more in the residential realm in place of stop signs. Alderman Carter also had one of these installed last year, and that project was around $20,000. It's at North Point and Park. If anybody wants to take a look at that one, what the good thing about these, you know, it eliminates that stop sign, but it also allows a chance to do some sort of vegetation or some plantings. It does really need to have some type of verticalness to it. So putting just pots out in the middle of the street is not gonna work. It needs to be something that when you're a half mile away on this long straight stretch, that when you look down the street, there's something in your face, okay? When a pot doesn't give you that breakup in your line of sight. So when you see that, if there's a tree there, or a statue, or a fountain, something to that nature, you want something that's going to be able to block your sight so that you're not just plowing through it. So if you remember correctly, I think Shane Cone, Alderman Cone had a few in his ward that were just pots. Well, there's nothing in the pots, so when you're coming, you know, he's got some straight stretches that are, you know, miles long.
Right.
They're just gonna plow into them because they're not visible. These traffic circles, you know, you put the signing in them, stripe them. It gives you a chance again to be a little bit more community driven in that let the plantings occur and have a little community involvement. D down there at the bottom are chicanes. It's kind of a fun word. But you can kind of see what those are. It's like a half of a bump out on each side. That basically gets you to slow down. They can have, you can be done on one-way streets or on two-way streets. It just, you'll design them and space them accordingly, so that you can maneuver around them. Again, striping is key, signing is key. The one in this picture is for a one-lane road. So don't expect to have two-way traffic going around those. So two-way traffic would certainly be spread out a lot more so you can get the radiuses in to go the speed you need to go. One of these is at Waterman, close to Union. These can also be done in conjunction with other traffic calming devices. I think the one at Union has it's called a splitter island, which is an island in the middle of the road that makes you go around it. So they push you to the side and then back around with the splitter island right in front of you. So there's different devices. The next page there, everybody's very familiar with these. These are bump outs in the top section there. These can be used, especially at an intersection like where you're you're wanting people to increase the sight distance, to be able to see out of the side street, you provide that bump out. That means people can't park right up to the edge where they're blocking that line of sight around. Allows the cars to inch out a little further so they can see around it without being obstructed by parked cars. Also allows the pedestrians a shorter path to cross the street. You can see there that their path that they're crossing, that time that they're in the street for all of our pedestrians, is much smaller when you have the bump out scenario. These are great in high traffic areas where you're wanting to do stop signs for sight distance. They also provide a little bit of space there for, people have done some either rain gardens in some cases, or I'll call it cafe seating, depending on how long that sometimes they've decided they like these so much that they're gonna eat up their parking space with them. And they've continued out to create some seating in that area. I think Whole Foods is a good location like that, where you can see in Central West End where that occurs. I think Biggie's down south, they've got a bump out with no,
Trattoria, yes.
yeah, there's a couple of them.
They use the dining part.
So that's that scenario. We had these before we even had the policy in place, because this has been around for quite a while. The next one down is called it's a choker. And essentially what it does is it chokes down the space of your road. That's its name. So it's essentially two bump outs. Instead of being on corners of an intersection, they are mid-block, and they come out. You can landscape them, and they kind of narrow your field of vision. So everything that we're trying to do here is to put some sort of obstruction in your line of sight that makes the perception of the road much narrower than it is, either with perception or physical. So you're trying to narrow that out. So again, here they've bumped it out, put the vegetation in it, trees, something that's going to say, I'm a little bit more squished, I'm gonna travel a little bit more slower. So this scenario here is at Waterman, again, a good location if you wanna take a look at where one of these
Is
are.
that Waterman and Union?
Waterman, in between Union and Kings Highway. Yes. And further down, and it's circled in red, and you can barely see it on the picture, you see that they've done a choker here, and then the red circle, they did a splitter island. So here, I'm gonna narrow you down, and then I'm gonna take you down a little bit, and I'm gonna push you out. So they're doing some horizontal deflections throughout the road, so that you can't just straight shot it and go 40 miles an hour down the road. Does that make sense? And if we get really fancy, G, at top here are diverters on the next page here, okay? These are great locations that if you're trying to create that neighborhood calming street, I think Louisiana is where we're going on there, that you want the street to be great for bikes, but we don't want the plethora of cars on that road, that we can take the cars and divert them down, go 5 blocks, and then we're gonna divert them down to the next street, but we leave a cut through like this for the cyclist to continue on. We don't have any of these here. This was an option that was in, Portland had these. I don't know if Kansas City had these or not.
What's that?
So it's a new concept, but I think if we had more cyclists, this would be certainly an option. But it also makes that route not that cut-through route. So, because you're diverting the cars over and letting the cyclists continue on. Alley bumps down at the bottom, we've added these to our listed toolbox over the last year. These are only $200 a piece. They're very cheap. So people cutting through alleys, speeding down alleys. We've had it where streets get changed one ways and then everybody goes to the alley.
Mm-hmm.
We've been putting these in. Our tricks, so that we minimize on the number that we use, is to put them next to a dumpster or where you have a utility pole next to it, so they can't go around it, and so they have to go over it. Usually we put them in, we break the alley into thirds, and we put, one here, or we end up with 2 in alley for a block, depending on the block, of course. Any other comments on that?
No, that was it. The alleys are about 15 feet wide, this is about 6 feet, so just like you said, put it right in the middle and try to get something on the outside to limit people squeezing past it.
So that one, we installed those on lands, I'm trying to get that number, 4,300, what block of lands down was that?
Yeah, I think that was
I
probably.
think it's 4,300 lands down, we've got them, I think Frank has some in his ward, and I'm trying to remember what block that's on. But I can get you some locations where these are at, because we've installed them in a couple places. So those have worked wonders.
And they're a little more rough than the speed hump, which is
Absolutely.
gradual climb. These are, basically a foot wide, and they go up 3.5 inches versus 7 feet up to get to 3.5 inches and 7 feet down. So a little more abrupt, but it's low speed alley traffic.
All right, and within this menu, there are other items that we of course do. Not all are traffic calming. Some can be used to make people aware of their speeds, like the speed radar signs. They like I've told many, they are very effective the first month or so. They start to wear off. The more times you go through the intersection, you know it's there. It's like, well, I know my speed, I'm just gonna continue to go on. After about 6 months, we suggest moving it to a new location. Most of them are installed on bases. They're solar powered, so it's a matter of us installing a new base, and we pick it up and we move it. So it's a very doable thing. We've moved Alderman Vaqueros around. It's just a matter of a phone call and your next, hotspot location you got. So we can certainly do that. Trees seem to be the only thing that really stops us there, because it's solar powered, so we did not be in an area where it gets sunlight. I'm gonna stop talking
Okay,
and see if you guys have any questions that might lead us in a different direction.
sure. Okay, thank you. Alderman Moore?
Yes. We know our communities very well. I've been living in my community since 1956. And I know where all the bones are buried. I think as a commissioner, my personal opinion is that you have too much power. And the power that you have, you tend to interfere with what my leadership is about taking care of my constituents, because I get the calls from them. But you keep saying my policy. Do you write law or do you make policy?
I make policy.
So I think that the aldermen need to be in on your policy making before you distribute something or have a blunder like the bike trail in my ward. I'm yet to see somebody ride down the bike trail
I
and
did have
ruin
the
my
alderman.
streets.
I had the alderman involved in the making of this policy. I had several aldermen. I think Jack was part of that as well.
I mean, you might have some,
Kara.
but I haven't been involved in it. Did you send me an email or anything like that?
Oh, yeah. Every alderman got this.
Maybe I should fire my secretary. But the deal is, I think that the commissioner has too much power and that you interfere with our politics, and that we need to be more involved in what you're doing with your policy making, because we're the lawmakers. We write the law. I had a street sign, a stop sign one time, and the law passed, and they said that Deanna said that it can't go there. And I was just wondering how you can intercept a law like that, a law that's a policy that's already put down by lawmakers, how you can stop, instead of coming and being involved in the situation, and then the law is passed through the mayor's office, and then you blocked it, a stop sign. That's a bit much power.
The charter of the city has that power in it, that my job is to make sure that the traffic control that's out there is safe for the motoring public, and that's my job, is to make sure that the public safety piece of it is there, and that there's some engineering sound judgment that goes behind the decisions, and then I'm not going to put up anything that's unsafe. So if there's a stop sign, most stop signs go through and I don't say a word. But there are some stop signs that get going, and it's to put a stop sign in the middle of Kings Highway is not a great decision. King Sideway is a high volume arterial. Page, we have multiple lane roads, and I think the one you're speaking of, sir, is when I was working at the Missouri Department of Transportation as their area engineer, and Page is a MoDOT route. So I was in a different capacity at that point, and with Page being under state control, that was it was a state decision, not me as the traffic commissioner.
Well, I mean, we shouldn't have had to put up that effort to write the law and deliberate on it, and then you like the mayor or the governor, you vetoed it, a law that was passed by a body that creates and writes the law.
Well, I do suggest,
I thought that was too much power.
I do suggest that aldermen who are interested in putting in stop signs have a conversation with the traffic department. We are the experts in that engineering field. We can let you know if there are crashes out there and if there are any other options. We're talking about traffic calming. I think Alderman Boyd, the chairman here, had mentioned, has anybody looked at those things before we start putting in stop signs? So there's other options out there. A lot of changes have been made over the last decades. We've gotten smarter, and we have a lot of other tools in our toolbox that can be used to help slow traffic down, because it doesn't seem to be getting better. Speeding seems to be getting worse, and the non-compliance with stop signs seems to be getting worse. So again, we're trying to stop crashes. We're trying to stop fatalities from happening, and that's kind of our mission and goal with the traffic department, and that's within my charter.
I think that we're smart enough to be involved in the
Absolutely,
in the policy making, and
absolutely.
that we should be considered because we know those communities. You have a broad vision, but I have an attachment, a personal attachment to that community. And I know what goes on there, and I think a lot of times that the boundaries are overstepped and it interferes with leadership.
Any more questions or comments, Alderman Moore?
And I still gonna get my LED lights that you chose.
That's my job, Alderman, absolutely. Wherever you want them.
No, you had some that came along with that grant.
My loan, it's not a grant, it's a loan,
Mhm.
and I'm paying for them out of my budget, and yes, they're still going in all the locations I said.
My, it's our.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And consider us as well.
Absolutely,
Okay,
every time.
thank you.
Anything else, Alderman Moore?
I'm finished.
Oh, in light of your comments, Alderman Moore, I think what we'll do on future stop sign bills and street closures, anything that's temporarily halting or impeding the flow of traffic, then we should get the opinion of the traffic commissioner. Then we won't have these situations, and we'll force the alderman to have conversations with the street department, then potentially usurping some powers that we just found out that the commissioner has. So that was quite enlightening. Thank you for that conversation. But I think in that way, we're always in constant communication with each other. Because I know I get plenty of requests to close streets in my neighborhood, and that always concerns me. I'm not a public safety expert, but talking to the fire department and the street department, sometimes it causes a public safety risk, and our constituents ask for it, but sometimes good ideas have unintended consequences, and certainly if somebody's having a heart attack or it's a health-related crisis, every second matters. So I think, how do you guys feel about that? Is that fair? That if you want a stop sign or street closures, that we would at least send the bill to the street traffic commissioner prior to assigning a board bill? Would that be okay?
Not for me.
Okay.
I still think there's too much power, but I'm gonna abide by what the committees say. Like Freeman Bowser used to say, it's in my ward, and I best know my ward better than.
Right, but we always want to make sure that we're not in conflict with law as well, right? I mean, we can't enact laws that's contrary to the charter or state law. So we want to make sure we're in compliance and not being out of order. Yes, sir.
And I think in the case of Alderman Moore's situation, if that conversation happens, it'll save you the time of going through something and passing an ordinance for that stop sign when it is the state control. So when in that initial discussion with us, we can stop it right there and say, hey, you know what, this is a MoDOT route, we need to involve them
Right.
with this before it gets too far, so that you don't have a wasted effort like you have when it's not even ours to give for a stop sign, it's state controlled. We can, in that initial discussion, pull them in too and hopefully save you some time there.
And that's my whole point.
Yeah.
You know, not to waste everybody's time, and always being respectful.
Chairman,
Okay.
I'm sorry, one more thing. You just mentioned that street closures. We have a policy through the Board of Public Service on street closures, and so we have a committee, and it's made up of fire, police, Board of Public Service, and myself. So we do, is when we get a request from, say, yourself, I pull them all together, and we all visit. If the alderman wants to be there, or any residents want to be there, we all go out. If we all can't find an agreeable time, everybody gets their comments back at a certain point in time of what their needs, or if the block's too long and they need a turnaround. Fire usually seems to be the challenging on the public safety side. They have some challenges with their equipment that they cannot back up. So if say on the street was closed, they get all the way down the end to do a service call. They can't back up for, it's a minimum distance. So if that block happens to be longer and they would have to back out to, say, an alley or another side street, they're unable to do so. That would require them to then have either a cul-de-sac or enough room to do a kind of a three-point turn so they can turn their fire truck around to get out. That's our challenge that they have stated here in the last year and a half. So we're trying to understand their concerns and look at different types of closures that aren't going to break the bank. That maybe it's islands, and a lot of people like the pots, but maybe doing some type of a bollard, lockable bollard with a Knox lock that still is going to prohibit vehicles from going through, but will allow the fire department to be able to unlock that and come through. So those are the type of things we're looking at.
Okay, and I bring that up about the street closure because
Yeah.
that's oftentimes used as a traffic calming tool.
Yes.
That in my mind could potentially have those unintended consequences. I noticed you didn't talk about it, so
Absolutely.
obviously you're not a big fan of that.
It has its good and bad points. You know, it's from the police, what I hear, fire has the difficulty of getting through with their vehicles. The police, what they say, they usually get blocked off. So if they're in pursuit of somebody on foot and it's blocked, they can't get through there. So then they've basically lost them unless they're going to go to foot, and that's, you know, other factors involved there. So it does break up a one-way grid. I'm, you know, when you're in a really residential neighborhood, I'm okay with it. I'm not opposed to it. I think it can really change the look and the feel of the neighborhood by having it. I think if you start looking around where we've got it, you kind of grow into that little subdivision type layout and setup, and it seems like a more cohesive neighborhood in that sense. So no, I'm not opposed to it. I don't necessarily call it traffic calming as far as a horizontal deflection, vertical kind of deflection, but you know, it's a different tactic. It's certainly a tool, though.
Okay, Alderwoman Murphy.
Okay, yeah, just a couple questions. Now, you said we put in 8 rubber humps in the 27th block.
Yes, ma'am.
How are they working? Have we got any feedback, like from residents with the ba-boom, ba-boom?
Ba-boom, ba-booms.
Because, I mean, that's what I've heard from, and
Yeah.
how, do they like them? Or are they working, I guess, more importantly?
They're brand new, I mean, within the last month or so.
Okay, so we don't have any
completed it.
statistics?
No, we don't. We're going
Okay.
to do that
Yeah.
because that's basically our traffic calming road there. We've got 5 speed humps and there's a traffic circle in between at one of the intersections.
And what
So
street exactly did he do that? I forget.
It
I
was North Point. and
North
it's
Point,
Just
okay,
west
that's right.
of Riverview, basically
Okay.
between Riverview and Goodfellow.
Okay,
And then there's 5 on that run. There's 3 more on Vivian.
okay. Because that's one of the things I keep telling my constituents. I want to see how, I said the 27th ward could be our guinea pig before we went to all that expense and see what the people think and see if it actually works.
When we installed them, there were several people that came out and said, we love it. And that was, you know, I think if you talk with the past alderman. If you look, actually, if you're on his Facebook page, you can see it.
Okay.
It was quite shocking, because I was following all the comments after he posted something on Facebook, and all the comments that followed that. It was kind of neat to see. There were a few naysayers, but hundreds of people chimed in with their comments on it. So I urge you.
It seems more positive.
It was definitely, it was more positive than negative.
Okay,
Yeah.
very interesting. And then on the bump outs, you were showing us the bump outs.
Yes, ma'am.
Are those permitted on bus and snow routes?
Yes.
Okay. Like, I'm specifically thinking, not to belabor everything, but you were looking at Leona and Holly Hills for me, and those people are interested in either a circle or something, but it is a bus and snow route.
Mhm.
And, so anyway, I'll
So,
talk
right,
with you.
But you're right, though, it is possible there, all we had to do is check the turning radius, make sure that we completely don't
A
landlock
bus
them out
can
from being able
turn.
to navigate through
Yeah,
there. But
because we already have a parkway there. See, and I can't imagine a bus
Yeah.
turning onto Holly Hills with a bump out. I can see them coming out of Holly Hills onto Leona, because Leona is very wide. But Holly Hills is not because of the.
Give us a call. We can
Okay, yeah, I think we
look at
did.
it.
We were
Oh,
talking
yeah.
and they were looking and
Yeah.
somebody asked me about it. So
Absolutely.
that's why I was just gonna inquire. We'll talk again later. And then you said that on the other thing, on just on the alley things, Refuge doesn't mind those alley bumps?
They'll deal with it.
They'll deal with it, they're going slow enough, I guess, that they don't care. And so then my other question is, we don't know how long they last, do we? Since
We
they're
do
brand
not.
new?
We do
Okay.
not, yes. And since we're putting them in front of the refuge dumpsters, they're stopped anyway. So it's not as if they're
Okay.
traveling over them
They're
at higher
booming
speeds.
all the time, okay,
Yep.
okay. So I like that, at the $200, that always seems like kind of like a doable thing if they last for a while.
Yes,
You know, we all have some alleys that people use,
I know.
it seems like.
I know.
And then you said on this big traffic circle,
Yes, ma'am.
they do not put stop signs up at all then?
No.
You would simply
It would
just.
come with yield signs approaching it from all
Okay.
directions then.
Okay,
And then within the circle itself, this one doesn't have the signing here, are one-way signs that tell you to go to your right. Yeah, all the way
Okay.
around it.
and I can see one of those, you said, at North Point?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah, I can actually send you a picture, I can just.
Okay, yeah, I'd like
Yeah.
to see it too, because again, for my constituents down there at,
Mm-hmm.
I know we're doing some things on Leona, but, you know. Okay, that's all my questions, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Alderman Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Deanna, on the raised crosswalks and speed humps,
Yes.
walk me through, so you've got the speed hump 35 to 55, and I think you mentioned this earlier, and I may have missed it. So you've got the rubberized ones that you've got in the 27th ward, which are
Correct.
highly labor intensive.
Yes.
Did you say those are the ones that cost about $6,000?
Those
Yes.
cost about $6,000 each.
Oh, wow, okay,
Yeah.
and then if you were to just do sort of raised asphalt, would that be BPS?
That's BPS, and it's the
No.
same design.
Yeah.
It's the same 7-foot rise, and then it plateaus 7 foot down.
Okay,
So-
but that's just raised asphalt?
All it is asphalt layered in there to get your,
And that's less labor intensive than the rubberized ones?
Yeah.
Okay.
shockingly enough.
It's
So-
only 2,400.
Have you installed, do we have any of the
The humps,
humps, the asphalt humps yet?
no. We had, was it 15th Ward? That's where the estimate came from?
I think that's where they looked, yeah.
Yeah, so I think Alderman Green was looking at having some installed. She had an estimate and then she wanted to hold off for another study, I think. But
Okay.
so she had the estimate done, and that's how we actually got them on the on-call contract that BPS has. So that's where that price comes from.
Okay, and then, so the raised crosswalks, and I was, just this last weekend, was in Salt Lake City, and there was a lot of these, and they really do slow you down. And they were all at sort of intersections with that weren't four-way stops, they were generally two-way stop
Yep.
intersections. So, I mean, it's the same concept, right? You're just
Absolutely.
doing it at a intersection?
Yes.
And so you mentioned the snow route deal, so
Yeah.
can you talk to us about that? Because other cities seem to have figured out how to use these raised crosswalks and speed humps on snow routes. They were all over the place in Salt Lake City, which gets a lot of snow. Why can't we do that? Because I don't know for me, and I don't know about my colleagues here, but most of my speeding issues are on snow routes.
Yes, they're on the big
The
streets.
sort of bigger
Right.
streets that are, not Tucker, but 12th Street or 9th Street, bigger roads. So could you explain sort of why we can't use these tools on snow routes?
So right now, what we are looking at, we're gonna do a test case.
Okay.
And see how that goes. We've gotta work with the other commissioner over streets and really see how that affects his equipment. When, we did take Todd out to see these in Kansas City or in Portland, and it got him over the hump, so to speak, of saying no to this, but he was a little nervous about ruining his equipment with the hump on a snow route. So I think when we saw the ones in Kansas City, and they were either in asphalt or in concrete, and the plow went right over them. Now you have to install them correctly, because if it comes in
It's a
too high,
gradual
it's
thing,
going
yeah.
to it'll ruin your.
But so if
truck.
done correctly, the plow has enough movement that it can
moves
just
with
go
you.
over?
Yeah.
Okay, you don't have to
Yeah.
raise the plow?
You should not have to.
Okay, all right.
So that's the challenge, and I think, again, we are in the infancy stage of doing these. We don't have a plethora of these in the city to really feel comfortable with, because everybody's still kind of wanting to try it out.
Mhm.
I absolutely understand the need to want to try to do something on some snow routes. We're working our way there.
Okay, because I mean, from my perspective, the raised crosswalks and speed humps seem to be one of the more
Yeah.
cost-effective
Yes.
measures on this list, as opposed to, $20,000
Yeah.
for canes and
I hear you.
$50,000 chokers. So, all right, well, if you,
Absolutely.
I'm happy to talk to you if you need some test
Test
locations,
locations.
we may be able to
Yeah.
find some.
One of the other things with speed humps is you're looking for the street that's got a lower volume of cars on it. You don't want 20,000 cars going down the street every day, because
Mhm.
if everybody's going at, 30 miles an hour where the speed limit's up, and then they all gotta slow down to a snail's pace, it's not gonna operate well.
Right.
You want it on that residential type route that's got around that 2,000 cars a day kind of thing, which is most of your residential streets that's what they're in.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
What else? And hill routes are our other giant component. I know Alderman Ogilvie has looked at some locations. Dogtown's got a lot of hills. So you start getting on a hill that's 8%, and then you try to put a bump in that kicks you out, you never catch on your slopes. So you'll have people bottoming out essentially, and you don't want that either. So those are kind of the challenges, so it's got some limitations,
Okay,
physical limitations.
thank you.
Let's see, you're done, Alderman Cole?
Yes, no more questions.
Okay. Alderman Bosley.
I just had a quick question. I don't know about everybody else, but I personally like the alley bumps. What is the possibility, or what would be the requirements to get those in particular streets? Doesn't have to be a main road, but these are a hell of a lot less than $6,000, and I could afford to put a lot of those in areas
No.
where people are complaining. And I'm really not caring about as far as how long they last. If they're in alleys, they gotta last a little bit of time. They're only $200, so I can go through 10 of these or 20 of them before even getting to the $6,000 mark. Cause we got a lot of problems in the residential areas. So I couldn't begin with $6,000, even $3,500 a piece to address half of them. But I could do it at a $200
Certainly.
each cost. So what I'm wondering or asking is, could I put these in residential areas on particular streets that are narrow enough?
So the short answer is no. The challenge is with these humps is that for anybody driving above the speed limit, that'll basically break your car and send you running. Whereas a hump is designed to gradually slow you down and come back down, this will send you off and probably hit another car. That's the challenge. So if you look some locations, they've been made illegal in that sense, and that's why the design of the hump has been made, so that we want them designed safely. I understand the concern about the cost. And that's why we've tried to get them on the on-call contract to get that price down in that $2,400 range, which is a lot more doable than 6,000, a lot more doable than 20,000. So, I do understand the concern, but, you know, for public safety, we don't do speed humps in the roadway. We can do them in the alleys where they're, I think the speed limit in the alley is 15,
Yeah.
so.
So are these well, of course, that's what's on the paper, but I'm sure there are other humps and bumps out there that might be a little less expensive. I'm just trying to figure out the best way to optimize, you know, with the little bit of, that we do get. Cause I think the humps can be extremely effective, but, you know, to really make them effective, where I'm at, you have to put them on each end of the block almost, you know, cause they'll stop her and then speed down the street. You know, I mean, they might even use this as a starting point to race. You know, I'm just saying, I would like to research with you, if possible, some other
Absolutely.
less expensive.
So we've done,
humps.
the rubber humps were a low bid, that we went out to low bid on that. So when we go out and purchase items, we have to get so many bids, and then it's openly bid through the supply division. And that's the low bid that came in. So that's, for our end and our purposes, there is a bit of a price break if you order X number, but it's usually in the 15 to 20 range, and we're not doing anything of that volume.
We're talking about for the rubber.
For the
ones,
rubber
right?
ones, and then, so the asphalt ones, that is also a bidded contract through with the Board of Public Service, which is also a low bid process. So they've gone out, to companies, and they have bid out, they said, we need prices for asphalt, concrete, name it, curb, ramps, anything that we would want them to do, they bid prices on that, and they go out to all the companies, and whoever wants to bid on it gives them their price per unit on those items, and then the lowest bid is then selected. That being said, the Board of Public Service has that low bid, and they put asphalt in the bid that allows them to do humps, and that's how we got that number there. So it is a low bid process, so we, just so you're comfortable, know that we've done our due diligence in making sure we've gotten the lowest price, and we're not getting taken, so to speak.
Well, I definitely believe, you know, you all do your due diligence. I was just speaking as far as maybe a different type of hump in particular, not just, you know, these, but, you know, just wondering about the other options that could be available.
Sure, and there are other options, but for humps, these are the two, and the humps are designed for the speed of the road. So if you have a 35 mile an hour, 30 mile an hour speed, the hump gets bigger, because you're trying to make sure that the car doesn't go errant into somebody else's yard,
I'll be in there.
street.
Tell me, I don't get, tell me be about 5 minutes.
So that's kind of what we're looking at. We have this is that risk and public safety piece of it, that we want to make sure that what we're doing is appropriate for the conditions that are out there. So.
Yeah, I don't have any further questions.
Alderman Vaccaro.
I do. And we have worked well on that closure and stuff, but if your budget was cut by 30%, what would happen?
30?
Yeah, 30%. What would happen?
We'd be turning off lights.
Okay, but yet our ward capital was cut by 30%. And that's what Alderman Bosley and Alderman Moore are saying. And we have to figure out, so if you can't only put any of these in. If you put one in on one block, everybody else is gonna get mad, well, why didn't they do my block? So you have to understand where we're coming from.
Absolutely do.
You know, our budget this year, 30%, less streets, less sidewalks, and the people don't get mad at you and say, well, I'm just not gonna vote for you because, you know, but they do get mad at us.
Well, they still get
And-
mad at me. Don't
Well-
think they don't. I absolutely understand. My job is to give you more tools.
I know, and I
And
understand that.
my job is to give you the tools in the toolbox that are available today.
No, I understand, Dan. I just want you to understand that cut to our ward capital, which has been cut every year, used to be almost 500.
Mine too.
You know, I know, but we got hit with a 30% cut this
I
year.
got 10.
And then
and
you
a
got,
person.
and then you got people's property tax that went up between $300 and $700. You know, and then we're gonna tell them, well, we can't do as much. I just wanted you to understand what our.
I absolutely understand. I'm in the same position as you. I mean, for every one call that you give me, I have 3 more on the other side that just call me direct. Just let you know. I mean, we get the same amount of calls.
But the street department budget didn't go down this year.
Yeah, it did. We lost people and
Well,
money.
people that were, jobs that were not filled.
Oh, they were filled.
Well, we got you guys coming in
We have a-
this week.
We have a layoff that we're doing today.
We'll look at the, I mean, obviously, we're gonna look at the budget. These guys, I think, are this week, or,
Yeah,
you know, so that, I mean.
Is it tomorrow?
Yeah,
Is it
I
I think
think,
it's tomorrow.
I think so. Anyway, I just wanted you to understand where,
oh,
you know,
absolutely.
why $200, where we can do something throughout a neighborhood versus 6,000, and if we do one, believe me, if I change every street one way and shut off every street, that people call me about, we'd have them all going one way. And nobody ever be able to come home ever again.
And again, Alderman, I'm here just to provide the options, you know,
Right.
as bigger projects come up, or you have grants that are available, or
Well,
different things, these are
then-
options that we can look at.
So your loan got Sam Moore's Ward LED lights.
They have throughout the entire city.
Okay, mine, I don't remember getting it. We paid for them in that meeting the other day. I had to put money in. You asked me if we're gonna
That
do
was
all-
for additional lights for your residential streets, yes.
So, but you're also putting in LED lights?
I'm putting, in your area will be on, what was it? Well,
I would say the, the loans for the major arterials, not
Yes.
the
So
residential.
which streets in my ward?
yours
are
is
good?
is Wabash up to Lansdowne. That one I know for sure. I'll have to look on the map and see where else everything
Yeah,
else
but
is.
do me a favor, let me know. And I have no other questions, so we do have to go make a quorum, but
Okay.
I just want you to understand where we're coming from.
Absolutely.
Mr. Chairman, I have one other question.
Yeah, we're gonna, yeah, go ahead.
Can
Thanks.
we get
Thanks, Jess.
innovative and redesign the hump, like the bump, so that way we have more incline? Can you inquire that to see about how the hump, you know, you talk about going over the hump and throwing people off, and the bump has a lower incline. Can they design that rubber hump to be like the bump?
And I think I mentioned before, we need to make sure that it's designed safely for everybody to go over at the right speed. And if that bump is placed out in the roadway where people are traveling at higher volumes and higher speeds, that it would send them errantly off into either parked cars or in people's front yards or into houses. So
Or
That's-
design it like the
that's
other one?
why it's designed like the hump, to bring you up gradually and then let you down gradually. So you still you get the slow down, they'll drop their speeds to well below 25 miles an hour. But it does it in a safe manner so that it doesn't put any damage to vehicles or to people or surrounding areas.
We're not, if I can interject, we're not allowed on that residential street classifications and above to put something in the middle of the street that's not a gradual climb and decline.
You
That-
design
the
it
alley
and make
bump
it
is-
gradual.
It's not a design, it's a
Then it's
law
a
that
bump.
we can't have something abrupt like a speed bump in the middle of a road. A speed hump is considered gradual, not as abrupt as
You
that, which
can't
makes
make
it
this
even
gradual?
possible for us
And
to
it's a
design
hump.
it, to put it in.
You can't make this
In
gradual?
order to make it gradual, it looks like the hump.
Then it's a hump.
That's what's been designed in order to make it gradual.
I think he asked him, would it be the same price if you made it gradual, just like the speed hump?
No, the price then comes down to 2,400 with the material that's needed.
You gotta go?
Yes, sir.
Okay, real quick, I wanna use, Alderman Moore as an example and get his opinion. So the bill that we passed earlier for, Taylor and Kennerly,
Mhm.
Alderman Moore, do you think that bump out striped and post type would fit? I mean, how would that work? Would that solve your problem? Notwithstanding the
They-
price of it, but,
They would run over that gadget.
no, right here, this one,
They would
where you
run-
bump it out.
The bump out on all four.
They would have to run over the curb.
It wouldn't work in
It
mine.
wouldn't work? Okay. I was just curious, using that as an intersection as an example.
You guys remember that?
Okay, I want to come back to Alderwoman Murphy.
I just have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Have we ever, or could we do, or should we do, a number study for Leona? You know, like you mentioned, the numbers of cars that go down the street.
Just,
Have we done that on like Leona and Holly Hills recently, or would that be part, Jamie, of what we're doing for that intersection? Would you put down a thing that, I'm always
cars?
curious, it seems like the traffic on Leona is higher than it was 20, 30 years ago, and I understand, they use it as a cut-through instead of Margin Ford because of Loughborough Commons and the Recplex. I think that's what's brought that up. Same way when you go over Grand Avenue through the park there, you know how that is, it's
cut,
just
yep.
crazy.
So we used to do traffic counts.
Yes.
And that was cut out of the budget many
Oh.
moons ago. So the last traffic count book that we have is from like 2000, I believe.
Okay.
If there's been a traffic study done, we collect those counts so that we have some. It's usually where either developers come through or we've made them come through and do some data analysis there. That being said, we can count it. I want to make sure we're doing something with the data and not just collecting it to collect it.
Right.
So if we need it for something, we can go out and do that.
Okay.
But
Yeah, we
Next
have the
door-
ability on those residential streets.
Yeah,
the
like
device-
Leona.
Yeah,
Between
the device
Bates-
we use for recording the speed also does volumes,
Yeah.
but it has to be one lane each direction. It
Right.
wouldn't work on a 2 lanes in each direction type of facility. With the
Mine would be
each
one
road.
lane each
So
way.
it would work for something like that, and if we're looking at cut-through volumes through neighborhoods,
yeah.
we could do a count the count comes back and it's 5,500 cars a day, that doesn't sound like a residential street, so we probably
Right.
have a cut-through problem. That's an indicator, red flag to look at it in
Yeah.
more detail.
Well, I'm going by all the hullabaloo on next door,
Yeah.
on Leona,
Yeah.
between Bates and then it goes all the way to Loughborough. And if there was some kind of count, just so I could say to people,
To put it to rest.
and then, maybe I know we can't do a speed hump here, but maybe we could do it closer to Bates, or whatever. But don't I need some numbers, or don't we need some speed statistics or something before we can do something?
And that's a good point with all of this, is as you guys get these requests per
Yeah.
policy to look at this stuff, we've probably had 35 requests since last August.
Oh, I bet.
And the major complaint is, well, again, traffic calming is for cut-through volumes and speeding through neighborhood streets.
Right.
So when your neighborhood complains of speeding, which is in all 35 cases been, speeding is the issue, not as much the cut-through volume, but speeding, we've got the tiebreaker between the subjective, what you guys are hearing, what we're hearing. We put the recorder up and we come back and we report, this is what the numbers say, it's been out there for a week or so, it records hourly, 24 hours a day, so it's the tiebreaker between the folks telling you that, and you haven't seen it yourself, but it quantifies actually what the speed is. There's no disputing that, so it puts it in perspective. It's only a couple miles an hour over the speed limit. With the way your funds are, it's probably not something you're going to sink money into for a couple mile an hour over the speed limit. If it's 5, 6, 7, 8 miles over the speed limit, you're like, well, we're probably onto something there. Let's look at what solution out of these, where one may not be the fit, but there's probably something in this toolbox that is the fit.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's why I think I need some statistics on Leona.
So that speed
Between
is
Bates
the
and-
same
oh.
discussion with
Yeah.
volume, so speed and
Okay.
volume are the great
So we
tools
can
have.
tell the people something.
So you've got her blocks
Yep,
and
I've
you've
got
got her on the list,
Mhm.
so we'll get you going.
Thank you.
Okay. But first of all, I just want to thank you for a great presentation. I think it's been very enlightening. And I'm probably going to ask that they edit it in a way that we can put it up on the website so that the patrons can hear the conversation and know what options are out there as well
Absolutely.
at their leisure. I just have a few questions. Speed radar device, and I've seen them and they're cute, but are they working? And how do we know?
Like I mentioned earlier, they work for about a month. And then after a month, people, after they see something all the time, they become immune to it. So most people say, we don't have a speed limit sign up on the road. I drive down, there's 3 of them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because you get so immune to what's sitting on the side. There's so much other stuff going on that we forget about what's there. So it works for about a month, and it'll flash in your face. After that, you don't even pay any attention to it. So that's when we suggest pick it up, move it to another location, so that it hits another spot for, you get a good month of people, you know, I'm gonna slow down. And then to move it around, but to be vigilant about moving it around. So you don't need 20 of them, you need a couple of them, and then just keep moving them around to different locations so that it brings some awareness to a problem. It's not a long-term solution, it's a very short, it's
Right,
just.
so they slow down for 30 days, let's say.
Mhm.
You move it, and then it picks back up.
Well,
Okay.
it'll pick back up anyway if you leave it there.
Right, so.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Because people
that-
just become immune to it, and
So that's why I say it's kind of cute, because
It-
I'm just not sure if
I'm
it's
there with
effective.
you.
But I
It's-
like to have a few just to, you know, say we're doing something,
Yep.
and hopefully it actually makes an impact.
Mhm.
But the disappointing news is that it's short term.
It is very
It's kind of like
short-term.
the police officer on the corner for a week or on the street for a week. Give a bunch of tickets out, then you don't see them again until you scream and holler, you know,
It's
months down the
the
road.
same thing, absolutely same thing. This kind of takes that place.
Okay,
But we could pass a law. If you want to pass a
That says
law
what?
that does ticketing with it.
that's what I was gonna ask you.
You can do that.
So they
You're
do
not
have
kidding.
devices in other cities that actually issue tickets, like the red light camera, for example.
Absolutely. We
And
talked
has
about
that proven to be constitutional? How is it being used in
Missouri.
other places?
Missouri's.
It's Missouri's is the problem.
Okay, so
Yeah.
it's the state.
So it's, if
We
we can
couldn't.
get it going, that way, and we've talked about trying to raise the issue again. Because we have serious issues and offenses.
Yeah.
We've talked about this, and maybe this is a place that could be done. That, I missed something.
I was like, who's over there?
Sorry. But it could be a way to help our crashes
Yeah.
get into a more manageable realm. We had a lot of people that completely disobey lights right now.
No, absolutely.
Yes.
Even traffic lights,
Yes.
never mind stop signs, but they're blowing straight through
Yeah.
traffic lights.
Because they know the cameras aren't there anymore.
And it's a challenge. It is a big challenge. So there's that. They've also, some states are now also doing the ticketing for speed. So same concept as running red lights
Mhm.
is out there for exceeding the speed. So it is out there, can be done. It's just our ability legislatively to do it. So
It reminds me of when I was a kid growing up over in Germany when I was in the Army. The first time I ever heard of it, they had them on the Autobahn. Of course, the Autobahn,
Yes.
it was like no speed limits in quite a few places, but there were spots that
Yes.
you did have a speed limit.
absolutely.
And they didn't have a problem mailing you
Right,
tickets in the
right.
mail. That was the
Illinois
first time I
will.
ever heard of it.
Illinois has them in their
Yeah.
in their construction
Oh,
zones.
really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
If you see a van over there just hanging out in a construction zone, that's what it is.
Yeah.
So-
So this is strictly a Jeff City thing, like they're the ones that overturned the red lights.
If
on
you-
us.
This is, you gotta pass it.
So it
Yeah.
wouldn't do us any good to try to do this speeding thing.
As long as we're willing to go there,
Oh.
you know, as a city, the city still has to adopt it. Now, even if the state says it, you know, it's like, an Olivet may not wanna do it.
Well, right, no,
But
I
yeah.
mean, say we wanna do it.
Jack?
Could I chime in on the
Yeah.
red light issue? So the Supreme Court of Missouri, a couple of years ago now, basically overturned local red light camera ordinances because you were basically, you weren't proving who was operating the vehicle.
Right,
That was one of the
right, I
big issues.
understand.
And it was not a moving violation. So speeding is traditionally a moving violation. We had created basically a ticket in its
Mhm.
place, which didn't jive with the state law relating to moving violations, and then you also didn't know who was driving. Now, the technology certainly exists to be
Yes.
able to, one, capture the plate and capture the person who's in the vehicle. Because
Mhm.
unlike a parking ticket, you can't just have the presumption that, oh, since it's your car, you were driving.
See, again, you can't change, see, that's a part of the law that needs to be changed, I think.
It's-
The car is getting the ticket, it's up to you to argue with
But you can't,
whoever was driving it at the time, you know, is my theory. I understand that's not the way
Right.
the Supreme
And
Court looked at it,
yeah,
but I
and
don't
under
get why we can't change it.
criminal law, you can't force
Yeah.
someone to prove they didn't do something.
Yeah.
The state has the burden of showing you did do something.
Right.
So for a
But your
ticket,
ticket gets a car no matter what.
car.
In a,
A
in a,
parking ticket.
and a parking
No
ticket,
matter who put it
yes.
there.
Yes, there's a local fine
So,
and non-moving.
Yeah,
violation.
yeah, if we could change that.
So
Okay.
the technology exists now, though.
Right, but
Yeah.
they're
That you
not gonna
can
let us
take
do
a
it.
face recognition with the plate,
Right.
and they can facial recognition match it up.
Wow.
So they can do that now.
Wow.
It is out there. It's just a matter of
And,
moving forward with it.
and real quick, the model in these other cities and states is that people speed because they're comfortable doing it, they know they're gonna get away with it.
Mhm.
Traffic calming is we're putting obstacles in their way to slow them down because we can't catch them. The model these other cities and states have done is automated speed enforcement. You're catching them, you're ticketing them, you're generating revenue, and a lot of times the model is to put that money back into transportation and safety improvements. So when your aldermanic funds come down, you don't have money for doing things, or the traffic division doesn't have money for funds for any capital improvements, you know, just maintenance type issues. That also becomes a source of revenue put back into your transportation infrastructure to make it safer.
Or you could split it up into police, you know,
Yeah,
and whatever.
The best system I know to calm your speeding is St. Louis County. If you take Lucas and Hunt from Highway 70 to St. Charles Rock Road, I guarantee you 90% of the people like me go 2 miles under the speed limit. Why? Because you assume
know it.
between those 5 municipalities, one of them is going to be out there. You're going to get
Right, that's right, and you know it.
And unfortunately, in the city of St. Louis, the county line, you just go, because it's like just an open door policy to
Well, they know we
speed
don't
at
have
your
to
will. So I want to compliment you on the speed humps in the alley. I think, I just love it when the city actually thinks through certain things, like putting the speed bump at the trash can, you know, so there's no argument about how it's tearing up the refuse trucks. Talk to me a little bit about what options, and this is kind of in light of what happened, like what continues to happen on Natural Bridge with the speeding and a couple months ago, the young lady was disfigured, and you continue to hear about accidents from speeding on Natural Bridge, especially for some reason in the 21st Ward. That's typically where it's happening between, I guess, Marcus and Vanderven. So what are the possibilities? That's the highway pretty much, right?
It is.
MoDOT control.
MoDOT control. I think you've got a lot of width in that area. The roadway is extremely wide.
Mm-hmm.
The number of cars that use it probably don't fit the number of lanes that are out there. It's one of those that probably used to have a lot more cars on it. I think a lot of this is what kind of, not only Natural Bridge, but we've seen in other areas, is that we have too much road for the amount of cars using it.
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of got to eat up the space, but we got to make smart use of the space that we have out there, because moving curbs it's cost prohibitive.
Astronomical, yeah,
So,
sure.
so we kind of got to figure out what else can we do. One of the traffic calming things that's in here is trees. Trees naturally create that barrier and that perception that your roadway is narrow. But when you only have tree here and you have a tree 60, 70 feet away, it's not enough. But if you put an island in the middle, now you've created a much skinnier section. You can narrow the width of the lanes of the road instead of trying to use up all that space. Narrow the lane width to 10 feet, which is perfectly acceptable. I'm not gonna go down to 9, but 10 feet. You don't need 12, you don't need 14, it's not an interstate. It's a street. So take it down, and if you have the center island eating up that space instead of the open 5th lane where people are just blowing, that also can help reduce it. Now, you could do the bump outs at intersections. You've got plenty of space for that. I think we said it's a 5-lane roadway section with parking. I think the last time where we were looking
Yeah.
at it yesterday.
I want to say, a lot of times what we're seeing over the past 3 years, looking at the data for pedestrian fatalities, we probably have 15 to 20 pedestrian fatalities a year, and 3/4 of them are people crossing at night at non-intersections. So no crosswalk, not even an intersection, not even a stoplight. A lot of times, more than not, they're standing in the center left turn lane waiting to cross right next to a signal. So what, right away, the inclination is throw money in, let's make the right type of ramps, the right crosswalks, the right lights, but every day on the way in from work, no matter where any of us are coming from, you can picture right now somebody crossing
Yeah.
50 feet south of, on a major street at a signal, so we're having a huge compliance problem as far as where you should cross. By law, by local ordinance, motorists are supposed to yield to pedestrians when the pedestrian's in a crosswalk. They're not supposed to yield to you. The pedestrian's supposed to yield to the vehicle at a non-crosswalk. So you can't just cross anywhere you want and expect people to stop. It's a dangerous situation if either one's
Regardless,
assuming
yeah.
regardless. But again, the inclination is to throw money at an intersection, make it, high-tech and lights flashing everywhere. That's already out there. We already have that stuff, and they're choosing to cross directly south of it. So that's the issue that I'm having right now is people are putting themselves in some very dangerous situations that I don't know exactly. I don't have the answer yet how you help that in the middle of the night to stand in the middle of the street and get hit. That's what I'm really grappling with. That is where a majority of our problem is right now.
Let me ask you this, because I'm reminded of Hanley Road, that would be south of 40, where that McDonald's is.
Yep.
Because I guess people, what's that, Richmond Heights?
I know where you're at,
They
yep.
they didn't want people coming out of McDonald's and going out and making a left, so they put these little plastic
Delineators.
ballet, real
Yep.
cheap looking
The
and
delineators up.
reflective. I mean, how reasonable is that? I'm just going off the top of my head, just thinking if you went up and down Natural Bridge, for example, or Goodfellas, I have a huge issue. Goodfellas, I think, is wider than Natural Bridge, and they're speeding every day down there, but we don't have the fatalities on Goodfellas. It's not residential, there's not a lot of commerce going on like Natural Bridge. What if we looked at doing something like that and take up that middle lane?
What I'm seeing is people always find a way. We had Jersey barriers, which are solid, so not even just delineators where they squeeze between. The Jersey barriers at Skinker and Clayton, basically at the southwest corner of Forest Park, before our improvement project in recent years to add signalized crossings so you can navigate that 3-in-1 intersection. There used to be Jersey barriers there near the interchange, and every day you could go down there, people are climbing over them, stepping between them, going around, crossing multiple legs of a road and one entrance ramp to a highway, and entrance and exit, to get to the park. So people always find a way. If there's 1 inch, they're gonna take it.
But that's a pedestrian issue.
So you're.
But I'm
taking
talking
up
about
the
if you want to
space.
calm speeding, for example, down on Natural Bridge, just using it as an example, if we put, what do you call those, by the way?
Flexible delineators.
Flexible delineators.
Yep.
Okay, if you put those up and down Natural Bridge, for example, would it make an impact? How much would it cost?
They're $50 each.
$50 each.
And
For
they
the
will
ones
make
that-
a party of knocking them down. I'm
So,
sorry,
it-
I have them.
Yeah, that is the downside.
Yeah.
It would be a maintenance issue.
So there's cheaper
Uh,
ones that are about $50 that you epoxy down. There's ones that you actually core in, and then some of those you see on the
Yeah.
bike routes. Those are about $100 installed. It's very labor intensive
Yeah.
between the material and the labor
So-
I'm trying to think if it's gonna give you
for a contractor.
what you need, cause you want that height, and these height-wise are not, they're more in the 3-foot range, not in the,
Okay.
they're not near eyesight here. I think you'd have some benefit if you did something like that. The challenge is you do need to be able to make lefts at some places, so we'd have to put those brakes, in that,
Sure.
so people can make lefts at the
Just like you have a
intersections and
median.
stuff. Yeah. It's certainly a possibility.
Okay.
It's gonna look odd,
Little-
but yeah,
Yeah, odd, it's a
Well,
nice way to say
right.
it. However,
but yeah, concept-wise, yeah.
Okay.
Does that make sense? 'Cause it
okay. I have a couple more questions.
Yes, sir.
Okay, page 9 of your policy, paragraph 9, page 4, talk about enforcement of traffic calming measures. So it's immediately following construction, the street department may monitor the effectiveness of the traffic calming measures. And I know you're saying that, in the 27th ward, for example, it's only been a couple of months, but what's the time period where you're gonna do a follow-up and go out there and test if it's
We were just
effective?
We had already, separate of this, we had already talked about
Yeah.
doing that now that the
Oh.
traffic
Because it's
circle,
been-
the humps got in there before the traffic circle was completed in the
Okay.
middle of it. That's
Okay.
now complete, so now we're looking at a good stretch of time, we can put the equipment out there and start recording our post speeds to show what type of travel speeds we have through there.
And will you share that with the alderman of that ward?
Yeah.
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely,
And
'cause
us.
we've got before data, that's, we've did out there, and then this would be after data. So, yeah, we can kind of,
Yeah.
I'll do a little one-page little summary if anybody kind of wants to see what's going on. But yeah, and that's essentially it. I would typically say 3 to 6 months after,
3 to 6 months. Okay.
that would be it, depending on what it is. If you're trying to get crash data, you need to actually wait almost a whole year, so you
Okay.
have a year prior to a year after. But for speeds, that's something that's almost, I want to say, you get some immediate reaction out of it.
Give me your best guess. Just take 1,000 feet or whatever it is. If you were going to put a median in the middle of Natural Bridge, for example, how much would that cost? Just your best guess.
It's expensive, because even just at Donovan and Jameson, a raised island there of a substantial size was $80,000.
How many linear feet?
Um,
And we're talking several hundreds of $1,000s going down a length of 1,000 feet.
Yeah, that was probably 150 feet,
And it was how much? 80,000?
80.
Okay.
And I think,
And it bowed out. I'm trying to push it into a shape that you're going for, so I can kind of get apples to apples here.
and I would say more than
150.
likely,
I think
to do something like you're talking on an arterial of a long stretch like that would be something we probably apply for federal funds
Right, I
for,
was gonna
because
say
that would
that.
break out anybody's bank here locally.
We
Yeah.
have to be forward thinking, and we have to look at the next round of federal dollars coming down and
Absolutely.
where the priority would be.
Mm-hmm.
To use those dollars besides just somewhere where we're going to make it pretty.
Mm-hmm.
Make it pretty and save lives.
Safe. Absolutely, and it's one of the things that, and I would love your expertise on this too, is trying to find that dollar source. It's one of the things that we heard during our budget meetings with all the aldermen is that for an alderman to save their money for 3 years to get the match, to go for the federal funds, is breaking the bank on their end,
Right.
for them the ability just to keep up the ward, and we all know those dollars are short. So that's kind of where we're looking at what funding mechanism is there or could there be so that there's some money coming into some pot that is dedicated solely for those type of projects, that it's not a taxing on each one of the wards. Do you know what I'm saying?
You would know this better than I would. So is there a state program and a federal program where we don't have to do as a city of St. Louis, a match? We take the match from the state and match it with the federal and,
No.
no?
It's all federal dollars. The state has access to those same federal dollars
Okay.
that we do, but
Okay.
it all requires the match.
Gotcha.
And that, I would say the match is typically been 20%, in some sometimes it's now going up to 50%. So,
Wow.
because those federal dollars are coming down, so they're getting fewer and fewer. And I think eventually we're going to have to figure out some type of transportation funding locally, to continue to have some type of, to keep our upkeep of our system.
Okay. Well, again, thank you for your presentation. It's very informative, enlightening, and very helpful.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks for having us.
So I'm gonna announce that we're gonna have a street committee hearing on, Thursday, the 18th at 11 o'clock here in the Legion Room. We're gonna hear board bills 32, 33, and another board bill.
You said 11 o'clock?
Street bill. 11 o'clock.
Whatever bills in committee.
Whatever bills that's gonna be posted, we're gonna hear.
Exactly.
We'll hear those.
Okay,
It'll
so we're
come out.
the street committee is adjourned. Thank you.
It'll come out.